Hey, Gary here. Welcome to BookMob episode 88. My episode is going to be called Reading Slump. Sometimes you get in these moods of, you read so much, you do a lot of research on reading, you read reviews, you watch, I'm talking about myself, of course, you watch book review channels, literature. And usually around January, I do get a bit of a slump from a heavy year of reading. And right now, I just can't seem to find the interest or the desire to read. And reading is one of the most important things in my life. So it's not uncommon for me to have reading slumps, particularly if I've had a major reading episode. And my last episode was the 100 novels that I picked that I think people can read and enjoy, regardless of their reading experience. Maybe that took a bit out of me because I just spent so much time reviewing, looking, rereading, and trying to come up with ideas in which inspire people to pick up books. And in so doing, I think I exhausted my reading entertainment mind. Nevertheless, I'm sure my reading slump will pass, and I'll be back to reading. It's I think it's the 5th of January, 2025. I've just got to take my meds. Maybe that will lift me up. Anyway, so I've decided just to do a quick, this is my NFI. It's my unpublished novel about my time in the military and the short time I spent in Iraq as a soldier back in 1991. And I've been working on and off this for years. And I'm still deciding whether or not to rework it again and try and get it out there. I'm unsure because I've reworked it so many times. The instinctive narrative that I bled through has kind of lost its way. And also because of that, I don't have the same insights that I had when I was first initially taken with the idea of writing about my military experience. 4 years as it is, but it's not about. It's basically, this book is about my experience in a novel form. It's not a memoir. It's not a biography. It is a novelization of my experience with the multiple characters and people that I met and experienced army life with, and also life with other soldiers when we went to Iraq in 1991. And it's written from my heart. I'll have to change a lot of names, even though it's over 30 years ago or somewhat. I don't think I'll worry about too much. I didn't put anyone really in a bad light, but nevertheless, I will have to. That's kind of the research I have to do now, because now I've forgotten whose names I used, and I may have used pseudonyms for people that exist, but now I'm unsure if those pseudonyms were the real people. So it's almost like I have to rewrite the rewrite. Anyway, I'm going to pick out for this episode, like I said, reading slump. So I'm going to do a writing inspired episode. It won't be a long one. Let me just see where I can begin. Okay, and I'll keep going until I'm okay. Let me think. Okay. Bear with me. I thought I had a good spot, and then it's gone, nah, that's too filthy. Okay. So remember that this is BookMob episode 88, and I'm in a reading slump, and so I've decided to read from my unpublished novel, NFI. And if you don't know that, the NFI means no fucking idea. Okay. Let me... Okay, this is a part where at the time we were travelling through Turkey. We were travelling from Incirlik Air Base, and then we were actually going to take take the buses to the border and then drive over in our rovers, the rovers that we brought over from Australia. The engineers were very, very busy. They were probably the busiest people on the tour. But then I was on a bus that was involved in a ridiculous accident. We had an explosion underneath the right rear passenger wheels. Apparently, the brake drum got hot and the tire expanded and exploded and blew through the floor of the bus. There was a lieutenant bloke sitting in the back of the bus, and the explosion went up straight through his legs, and there was shrapnel from all the rubber parts and probably parts of the brake, and also parts of the actual bus flooring that went into various people's eyes and arms and legs. So it was quite an amazing experience, particularly as I had a hangover like you wouldn't fucking believe, and I'd been half asleep. And when the explosion went off, I was unaware that we had pulled over because the driver had said there's something wrong with the wheel. I didn't know that. I'd just been asleep, and suddenly I'm awoken by this massive explosion and all these screams. Anyway, following that, we got the injured off. I think one or two of them had to be flown to Germany because one of the corporals got shrapnel in his eyeballs, and he was flown by the Americans to Germany. So this is me sitting, this is the novelisation, this is me sitting on the side of the bus looking at the local Turkish bloke whose entire head was black with soot. I dragged worryingly on my smoke and watched a drop of sweat fall from my nose to my smoking finger, then onto the smoke. Moneybags, okay, Moneybags is a pseudonym for one of the officers. Moneybags came over and hushed up with us with a cough and a wave of his arms to bring the whole bunch of us together. He waited a few seconds, his small dog-like face burning up in the Turkish sun. I could see beads of sweat splattered all over his forehead. He squeezed his whole face together and coughed again, like this one a real serious army loud don't fuck with me cough. Like, shut up, you fucks. Okay, here it is. We have to turn back. And when he means that, we have to turn back to go to Incirlik because we could not go forward with the bus that we were on. And obviously they had to rehire another driver because the driver who was on the bus that exploded wasn't going to keep going. Okay, here it is. We have to turn back. Fucking bloody hell, ridiculous hell, fucking noises. Settle down, I said to Buff. We'll never get into this fucking country, mate. That includes you, Private Daly. There was a lot of spite in that, and I wondered if he too wanted to bang Morrit as he knew, and he knew as Buff did, as Kimo supposedly did that. I have to change that name. I'm going to change that name to Spot, just for today. See, I forgot that one. Fuck, I'm in deep shit. What if Mustachio found out? Okay, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to leave here with the Turkish police. The Turkish police had turned up and had parked 3 small blue tin can cars with overly large blue flashing lights at the top. They look fucking ridiculous. They stood behind the bus, and one was talking harshly to the bloke with the burnt black head. Or I imagined it was. I don't recall seeing anyone from the group go over and ask why if he was okay. Moneybags went on. I will be back soon. The group broke up. I asked, I have to change that bloody name too. What did I call him? Okay, I'll call him Dog. Just for the time being. The group broke up. I asked Dog, what's going on? Major thing is going with the cops to make a statement, and the others are staying here to look after us. Oh, I lit another smoke. So are we going in? Dog said, no, we have to go back to Adana to get Corporal some medical help. Yeah, that's right. I saw Legless standing up. He was being comforted by Spot. He looked really depressed. Legless was the name I gave the guy who had his legs damaged from the brake pad, whatever explosion, and that guy was in a lot of pain. He probably wants to do her as well. Mick. The corporal had his eyes closed. I borrowed a copy of the Stars and Stripes from an engineer who got a smoke for it. On the front page was a photograph and a story of yet another Gandhi's children that had been murdered in India, blown to smithereens by a suicide bomber. I was in a state of mixed confusion and agitation. I recalled my initial response to the brake pad bomber and the feeling that I should do as much as possible to go home, and now that chance was a possibility again. I wanted nothing more than to get deeper into it. If I was a believer in omens, this was a pretty clear one. It was bloody loud. We were going back to the airbase, and I had a distinct feeling that by the time we got back to Adana, the gig would be up and we would be left hanging in between worlds. There was a great fear that we were going to miss out, that due to this accident, that, this is just all, childish soldier shit that would go through our minds, that we wanted desperately to get into Iraq and do our job. And this was yet another, because all along the way in this journey to Iraq, there were just complete and utter fuck-ups that kept stopping us from getting in our boots on the ground. And it was really frustrating because we knew nothing. As soldiers, you know nothing about what's going on above your rank. And so there was just constant delays. And on the day we finally get the go-ahead, we have this problem, and now we are returning, some of us are returning back to Adana to get a new bus and a new driver. So it was a big worry that we weren't going to make it. The corporal fell asleep with bandages around his head. Legless got back to walking, and we waited hours for Moneybags, who was by now rotting, we thought was by now rotting in a Turkish prison, a la Midnight Express. The sun went down, and I managed to get 5 more packs of smokes from a kid selling them from the back of his dad's motorbike. He did a brisk trade, and it wasn't long before a van turned up with coke and lollies, which we bought with our American dollars. Boof bought some playing cards with a dark brunette holding a red see-through piece of cloth in front of her. He got a game going in the light of a shack that seemed to be some kind of discussion. Men would turn up in small groups, then turn away when they saw the policeman looking at us. I'm talking about locals. Maybe I should change that. Locals, because that kind of does confuse you. So locals would just come over and just look at us. Then they'd see the cops and piss off. They all carried sets of beads on which they skipped about the palms of their hands. They seemed genuinely interested, and there was a desire to communicate through the stale air of tension that hung over us. In reality, we were a band of armed soldiers from the combined forces that had invaded Iraq, a Muslim country. Our allies are Turkish, were part of NATO, and also Muslim. It seemed that anything could happen. Nothing did, though. Buff played cards and gave me a spare card with a mysterious girl on it. I smoked a lot of my new cigarettes, which tasted like dog shit, but smokable dog shit at that. I held the card on my knees and blew puffs of white smoke through her. She seemed so sexy, so willing, so wanting. Her costume, right out of I Dream of Jeannie, was pure lust. Her dark eyes were looking right at me, into me. She seemed very available, even though she was just a piece of cardboard. But somewhere she was real. The officers sat and talked amongst themselves. Dog was with the engineers, and the Air Force contingent grouped up near the bus. The burnt head one had gone, and the crowds of mingling men died out, and the police sat in their cars with the lights on, listening to some really irritating music with loads of bells and yells. It was going to be a long night. Just as I'd said that, Moneybags arrived with some more police officers and at once ordered us on the bus. Corporal, who had by now had his eyes heavily more bandaged because there was more blood, was led up into the bus by Legless and another lieutenant nurse who was looking very hot and bothered. Moneybags looked out of the doorway, looked down the bus and said, "Everybody here?" Then with a firm military resolution, "Good, let's go." The same bus. Was the brake drum fixed? Good. Arced up and shut out, music blaring. I leaned back in my chair, put on some Kenny Rogers and went to sleep. I slept pretty well, and I dreamt that I was standing by a large swimming pool. It was filled with dirt water, and I was told to jump in and catch a slug-like fish that I could see moving through the water. I jumped in, and it instantly came up standing in a park. I looked back and saw a beautifully designed thick Greek hedge. Through it came Vicky, and of course she did not recognise me. I called out to her, and when I went up to talk to her, she went through the hedge, and by the time I got there, she was gone. Okay, that was like a sort of heat-induced dream. I'll make it clearer when I do the edit. We arrived back at our tent city at Adana, and we all felt, in some respects, that we had come home. I was still concerned that we would miss out and get stuck in Turkey for another week. Dog agreed and said that he was used to army fuck-ups, but not this one. What a complete and fucking abortion, he said. Corporal went straight to the American military hospital where we had seen the bearded one. I'll talk about that later. News came back fairly quickly that he was being flown to Germany. Fucking what? Yeah, Germany, said Buff, who seemed to be tapped directly into the headquarters anus. He said that smoking one of my cigarettes and half leaning out of the tent flap. He suspiciously looked around. He grinned and promptly disappeared into the night. Dog stretched back on the bed and looked as if he was going to sleep. What are we going to do? Dog held his hands at his side and shook his head. Dunno, sleep. Fuck that, I said. Let's get a drink. It's only 11. Dog rolled over on the squeaking cot and heaved up. Okay, let's go. Boof came in again and said, I think Corporal's gone blind. Fucking what, I said? Yeah, it's pretty bad. Shit, Dog said. He's already fucked off. What, to Germany, I said. Yeah, fuck. His wife's going to be pissed off. I asked, is that considered wounded in action? Cambo said quickly, nah, this is operational service, not active service, mate. Shit. Hey, Boof, we're going for a beer. You coming? Yeah, I'll just get my shirt. Shit, Dog, are we ever going to get out of this fucking place? He shrugged his shoulders and said, dunno. We walked briskly up to the Wagon Wheel. The Wagon Wheel was a bar that we went to quite a lot during the time we were in Turkey. We walked briskly up to the Wagon Wheel and noticed how empty the bar seemed. Half the troops had gone. Gone where? The Wagon Wheel was still there, but it held nothing of the previous night's experience. Most of the Yanks had got to know us, had departed for all points, and the barman did not seem too pleased to see us. I got us 3 jugs of beers and a huge pile of peanuts and began to drink, smoke, and gorge non-stop on the peanuts. By the time the jugs were voted on, 3 more jugs before we called it a night. We drank to others already well on their way in country. We were certainly out country, and it seemed that we were not meant to be there. And then another 3 jugs were called, followed by a round of tequilas at Buff's desire and payment, and then another round of jugs with a shot of bourbon at my desire and payment. It was a dead-end party, and we left the Wagon Wheel well into the night, stumbling and groping our way back to the tents. I crashed badly and woke up once again with a roaring hangover and empty feeling of remoteness. Can we finally fucking get there already? The bus pulled out once again from the airbase, and once again we were on our way to Iraq. This time it had to be real. All along it had been a setup as an adventure of fantasy. The others would have already been in country by now, and it was very important that I too was bloody in country. Dog was sitting behind me. Legolas was near the front, just opposite Moneybags, who probably wanted to do Spot as well. Spot was sitting just 2 seats in front of me, pleasantly, with the lieutenant nurse, who still looked as bloody haggard and pissed off as she did yesterday. I almost got the feeling that she didn't want to be here. The traffic flowed in much the same manner as it did the previous day, and I just wanted to fast forward to the spot when the armed attack took place. From here until there was a replica performance. It was hot and my head ached once again. I took 3 Panadol, 2 ibuprofen, swallowed a huge glut of Coke, took a bite of my sandwich that was damp with 2-day-old tomato. I listened to Kenny Rogers and turned into the chair to sleep, which I did with much pleasure and ease. I woke to see Boof looking down at me, drinking a piss. Oh, Jesus, fuck. Come on, Dallas. Let's have a smoke. Yeah, hold on, where are we? Boof was already walking down the aisle, and Spot was looking at me, smiling. Hi, Gary. Afternoon, ma'am, I think. Yes, you've been snoring away for hours. Sorry. I got up and walked past her. The bailiff still looked very, very pissed off. What's her fucking problem? All right, I'm going to leave it there. Long enough. It's funny just reading it out loud. It's kind of inspired me because I saw a few things I need to fix up. Again, I'm feeling I feel better just from doing this episode. Maybe it was just because of the Christmas New Year period. Really got to me. But anyway, that was from NFI. This is volume 2. Where's volume 1? So volume 1 is pretty much NFI when I was in Townsville waiting to deploy to Iraq, and NFI 2 is probably the stuff we had to do and face in Turkey and Iraq and then coming home again. All right, so that's it for BookMob Ep 88. Thanks for joining us. I hope it wasn't too boring for you. I'll be back with another episode probably in the week, and hopefully my reading slump will be over then. Okay, have a great week. Go to the bookshops, buy some books, read some books, and if you're in a reading slump, maybe write a book. Bye.